If we want to live each day with peace and joy, if we want to have robust self-worth and stop comparing and judging and looking outside ourselves to check if we are good enough, if we want to free up huge amounts of mental and emotional energy, if we want to heal and feel balanced and confident and pumped for who we are, then I can tell you the fastest way to do it is through self-love, true love for ourselves. And today I'm going to tell you how I've done this for myself in some of the most difficult of circumstances and how no matter what is happening in your life, you have the power to do it too. This is Empowering from Within, a show here to remind us how strong and excellent and valuable we all are, and that we all get to love ourselves and our lives no matter what. Hello and welcome to the Empowering from Within podcast. Phoebe here. I'm so glad you've joined me. Today we're going to get into self-love, self-image, and how to create the deepest, most sustaining sense of self-worth in our lives, which, let's be real, is the cornerstone of our confidence, of our ability to contribute. It is a very valuable thing to have in relationships, in our careers, in our finances. If you want to get really spiritual, self-worth is a cornerstone of manifesting everything that we want, because what we believe about ourselves is really going to be reflected back to us by the world in all areas of our lives. So how do we cultivate deep, lasting, true self-love? Fortunately, I can tell you from experience that it does not come from the outside. I have spent my life trying to fit in, seek approval, seek the love of everyone around me as a means to fill in my own self-love and self-worth. And it's a valid response to our childhoods in which we are taught that when we do things that are pleasing to other people, we get showered with praise and approval. And so we're conditioned to be on this hamster wheel of seeking approval and validation and love from the outside. It's part of the system. However, once you get to a certain age, it's no longer cute to be seeking love and approval from everyone around you as a means of the foundation of your self-worth. So our self-image, let's get to some definitions. Self-image is really about how we perceive ourselves and how we feel others are perceiving us. Self-love is about how we treat ourselves, how we feel about ourselves, how we love ourselves, and how we prioritize ourselves. So now let's look at the definition of love. True, genuine love is unconditional love and acceptance for a person or a situation exactly as it is. Flaws, foibles, misgivings, misfortunes, and all. It is not thinking that something or someone is 100% perfect, good, and incredible. It is seeing that there is an equal amount of good and bad to everything and everyone. And sometimes situations look so negative and terrible that we need to consciously rebalance our love for it, because as soon as we fall out of balance in how we're perceiving life as either this is entirely good or this is entirely bad, our perception is out of a state of love, because love is seeing both. Now, have I swung out of perception many times every day? Yes, I have. Do I make a conscious choice to neutralize and see the good and bad in everything every day? I do now, because I have reaped the benefits and the rewards of living with love in my heart and not being on that hamster wheel of blaming, complaining, hating, and judging everything and everyone. And when we do this for ourselves and our own self-love, it gives such a profound sense of peace and confidence, so that when other people are perceiving us in a negative light or judging us or haters be hating, we know so deeply our own self-love and acceptance that it doesn't shake us and it doesn't knock us off balance like it used to, for me at least. I used to only be okay if everyone around me was okay with me. Now, this is the definition of insecurity. So, how do we get to true self-love? Well, I'm going to give you my level 10 out of 10s that I have processed in my life to get to a beautiful, genuine state of love for. Some of you know that when I was 18, I had a very profound and devastating experience with illness. I was studying at university and I had a very severe and near fatal allergic reaction, and I lost both my legs below the knee, my left hand at the wrist, and the tips of my right hand fingers, and my skin and my lungs and my eyes burnt and blistered so that my corneas, the outer layer of my eyes, formed very thick scar tissue and limited my vision and my visual perception from that time. And I was in a coma for 5 weeks and I was very close to death for much of that time. And when the doctors performed the amputating surgery, I actually turned a corner and it looked like I was going to live. Now, I was unaware of all the calamity that was going on, but I woke up to an entirely new body and a new reality where I no longer had the health and abilities that I had had when I entered the hospital. And it was extremely devastating. But for some reason, somehow, my spirit and my soul was so deeply powerful and strong at that time. And I just knew very early on that even though my body was now extremely injured and different, who I was when I walked into that hospital with my body completely intact and who I was when I woke up with all my injuries and newfound disabilities was exactly the same person, the same essence. And it was a gift to be able to see that who I was on the deepest level was nothing to do with a physical body. And I was on a mission to learn to walk on prosthetic legs, regain my strength, and get back to my life and learn how to navigate being a university student with low vision and prosthetic legs. I just wanted to get back to my life and my friends, and that was my driving motivation. That's being 18, right? So in terms of my mental and emotional well-being at that time, my spirit was strong. There was no issue with my spiritual well-being. She was a force. My mental well-being was focused on recovery, strength building, getting back to uni. I was on an absolute mission. My emotional well-being was okay. I was certainly expressing my grief and loss at what had happened. And I had a team of doctors and physios and all the peeps around me in hospital because I was in there for approximately 5 or 6 months. And at one point, quite early on, when I had woken up from the coma, they sent a psychologist in to talk to me. And I didn't click with the psychologist. I just had bigger fish to fry. And I was like, you know what? Don't send them back. I'm good. I did not step inside a psychologist's office for another maybe 20 years. I then found myself in my late 30s. I had ongoing eye issues and I was at the eye doctor's office a lot. I was losing more vision and it got to the point where I had to have my eye removed. And during the eye removal process, I had to have a reconstructive surgery so that I could wear a prosthetic eye. And that surgery failed around 21 times. And I was just in and out of hospital constantly for the better part of a year and a half. And it was actually a lot harder than going through my original illness because there was just constant failure. I would have the operation, it would fail, and I'd have to have it again. I was constantly in my surgeon's office getting bad news. I was constantly heading to hospital, having general anesthetic. And I started to become very anxious and panic-stricken and uncertain about how, when, if my eye would ever heal. And I couldn't understand what was going on. In a medical sense, there was no reason why it kept failing. And I knew something deeper was going on and I needed better tools to cope with the difficulty in my emotional processing around it. So I just looked for a psychologist who had a spiritual background because I didn't want to be just seen as a physical body that would be pummeled with pharmaceuticals to make all my feelings go away. I genuinely wanted to process them. And I know pharmaceuticals help a lot of people. I have no judgment on that. Just for me personally, I have never dabbled with them. I have never sought them out. I have always found that the emotions I'm having were a natural response to whatever difficulty was going on in my life, and I never wanted to suppress that. Have I drunk too much alcohol in my time? Have I used other coping mechanisms like trying to achieve away my poor feelings or trying to shove them down far away so that I can get on with everything else? Yes, I have. So I'm not saying this from a place of feeling like I have everything figured out. However, I have been so reluctant to go and see a therapist because I always felt like I actually knew more about myself and about my life than any other therapist could. I had a bit of a chip on my shoulder by saying, well, if you can show me a therapist who has lost 3 limbs and much of their vision when they were 18 and gone on to rebuild their life, yes, willing to listen. But no one can try to school me on how to overcome things because, I frankly felt like I was the queen of overcoming things. But as I say, this eye medical issue really got me down. And so I ended up seeking more support. This therapist was brilliant, lovely, very warm, and she helped me see a lot of things from my childhood that I had not been able to see clearly myself. And that was very helpful. But it also felt limiting because I felt like after a certain time, I was just going in there to complain and I was stuck in a bit of a hamster wheel of complaining, venting, going back to my life, then coming back, complaining, venting. And there was no change. So I sought out other modes of healing and mentors. And I found the most wonderful mentor and healer who helped me see that we actually don't need the therapy, we don't need the drugs, we don't need the plant medicine, we don't need the people around us, we don't need the stuff to make us feel better about our lives. It's totally an inside job. And I was skeptical at first because I was like, yeah, but you don't know what I've been through. And he was like, well, if I am not seeing a therapist who sees me as completely extraordinary and perfectly designed, then that therapist is wasting my time. And it was just such a beautiful light bulb moment for me to truly see that how I was and everything that had happened to me and the way that my body now functions is entirely and utterly perfect and brilliant. And he helped me see this law of unconditional love in life where there is no good and bad. There is only both at all times. And he gave me some homework to do to truly unlock the greatest levels of self-love I have ever experienced. And he started to talk to me about my vision, which I have subconsciously and consciously been berating and upset about for decades. I mean, and also my limb loss, there must have been tens of thousands of times that I have thought to myself, particularly at university and when I first started working as a lawyer and having small children, where I just would think, this would be so much easier if I could see. This would be so much easier if I could walk pain-free and comfortably. This would be so much easier if I could run. This would be so much easier if I could drive. All these simple human abilities that I took for granted before my illness, I would constantly compare where I was now to what could be and how much easier it would be. It felt like just a natural reaction to me. But through seeing myself as utterly brilliant and perfectly designed, I started to unwind these tens of thousands of thoughts and started to actually genuinely love myself. So here's some actual real examples of how I have come to love and appreciate all the ways my body is different and, what we would traditionally call limited, disabled, not functioning, all the negative words. But how I have genuinely come to see that all of these injuries could actually be seen as genius, best design choices. When you have limited vision, do you know what expands and goes absolutely gangbusters? Your brain power. Because when you are not distracted by the visual world, suddenly your ability to retain information and your memory and your audio sensations and your sensory perceptions in terms of sensing and feeling people's energies or the things that are around you is so deeply heightened. I can and have retained unprecedented amounts of information and knowledge. I have listened to thousands of podcasts and audiobooks through my ears. And because I am so limited in my vision, my memory has had to work 10 times harder because I can't rely on my visual senses to get me around, to help me find things. I have a razor sharp hearing of not only what people say, but the exact tone of voice that they use. I often avoid walking into like branches and walls because I can sense that there is something that I'm walking towards. I believe it's called proprioception. And when you have such a rich and intense internal sensory experience that is not through your eyesight, do you know what else goes gangbusters? Your intuition and your sense of internal compass. And because you can't see the normal societal distractions or visual cues that everyone else is seeing and following, you suddenly are genuinely following your own internal compass as a means of moving through life. How is that not an amazing advantage? To go a step further, the amount of times I've had to tell someone, I can't read that sign, or I can't see friends when I run into them out and about at the shops or in the city or what have you. I need to listen to them talking to me before I can work out who it is, unless it's a really close friend. And then they come right up to my face and wave in my face and say, it's me, because they know I have low vision. The amount of ego deaths that you have to go through when you have to explain to someone, I can't see that basic thing that everyone else can follow. The amount of ego deaths you have to have when you have prosthetic legs and you have to say, I can't walk that far. Is there a chance you could help me, give me a lift, bring it to me, whatever it may be? Do you know what is amazing? Like, yes, the negatives are there. Like, it's humiliating. It's embarrassing. You feel so vulnerable and you have to constantly tell people, hey, I can't do the things that everyone else can do. But do you know what goes absolutely off the charts when you have those kind of limitations? Your sense of being an extremely humble person and your incredible ability to optimize what you have and your constant, continuous brain pattern of just problem solving constantly, all day, every day, to find workarounds for things that you can't do. Do you know what a gift that is as a way of living and approaching life? And do you know what is incredible about not having a giant ego and having your ego just burnt to a crisp over and over and over again from 18 years of age? You're not playing everyone else's game, A. And B, you can see everyone else's ego so clearly. And you have zero judgment for it because you have such an internal sense of who you are, what matters, and what is driving you that when you see people being driven by other like nonsensical, shallow, vapid, empty stuff just to fit in, which I genuinely can't fit in. Like, I am the walking embodiment of someone who is not here to fit in. You suddenly see everyone for who they are and genuinely not in a judgmental way. Just you can see people's insecurities and drivers so clearly when you have been through the process of having to crumble your own insecurities and face them over and over and over again. So even though I have spent much of my life trying to fit in, much of my life trying to gain approval, much of my life trying to hide and diminish the fact that my body is built and engineered very, very differently from everyone else's and looks terribly injured from the outside in, I am genuinely at a place where I have undone so much of that self-berating, and I don't want to say self-hate, but I guess the opposite of self-love is self-hate, just self-diminishment, self-shrinking, where I'm like, yes, I am not as good as you, was the energy I was putting out to the world before I had this rapid and profound perception shift to see that actually the way I am built and designed is not only perfectly fine, but it is actually genius and brilliant. And for every single limitation, there has been some kind of extreme expansion because of it, which is the definition of unconditional love and self-love, seeing the bad and the loss as equal to the good and the gain. And I am now a 1000% expert at seeing the benefits in every disadvantage, which is why when people come to me for sessions and they might be admonishing something about themselves or a circumstance they're going through, I am able to see the gift and the advantage and the strength that they have because of whatever the negative thing is so fast and so quickly, to the point where it neutralizes the crappy situation very quickly. And that is really what healing is. That is my definition of healing. When you come to fully accept and love the things that have caused you pain and discomfort and sadness and loss. Healing is embracing them and seeing the gifts and the positives and the incredible edge that some of our most difficult circumstances have given us. So I invite you to see some of your own quote unquote limitations as maybe being the greatest thing that has ever happened to you. I'll give you one that is less of a level 10 out of 10 difficulty, like limb loss or loss of a sense. I have a beautiful friend who has been through so much in her life. And she was saying to me the other day, I'm a really slow learner. And she was saying it like it wasn't a good thing. She was laughing sheepishly about it. And she's brilliant. She's a lawyer. She's incredible. But she was saying to me, I'm starting to realize I'm a really slow learner in life. And I was like, being a slow learner is your greatest gift, because when you're a slow learner, you're obviously taking in the lesson from every single angle possible. You are doing it over and over again. You're seeing it every which way it can come. You are trying to solve it in 10 wrong ways before you finally hit the 11th and go, oh, that's how you overcome this lesson. That's what the missing piece was. Do you know what being a slow learner means? That you are the most exquisite, magnificent teacher, because you can speak about the lesson for hours and hours on end because you've literally experienced it over and over and over again and didn't get it until you found the one missing piece after turning over thousands of stones to work out the lesson and the answer to it from every single angle possible. So next time you are having difficulty in your life, you're coming up against an obstacle, you have a personality trait that may be giving you pause to question if this is actually a helpful personality trait or something that is limiting you and crappy. I bet you that there is a gift and an edge that whatever it is you don't like about yourself or your life is giving you, and that actually everything about you was perfectly designed for your life and your purpose here on earth. And I challenge you to unconditionally love everything about you and everything about your life and start to find the gold in all your most difficult challenges in life. And when you do, you're going to hit big dog, pro level empowerment from within, because you are not going to need anyone outside of you to tell you that you're perfect. You are not going to need anyone outside of you to approve of you. You are not going to need to be like everyone else, because you are going to be so satisfied and content and so unconditionally in love with all of who you are that you are going to start playing your own game. You are going to start having all your decisions in life being driven by what is actually best for you and not what is going to get you approval from the outside. And you're going to feel 10 out of 10 excellent about who you are and what you're doing. So there's not going to be a single eye roll, hater, judgment that can come to you and actually rock you, because your sense of self-love and self-worth is going to be so rock steady because you have done this incredible internal reflection and made this incredible choice to embrace and love everything about you, which also has the bonus benefit of freeing up countless amounts of mental and emotional energy that we would otherwise spend tangled up with trying to change ourselves or admonish ourselves or criticize ourselves or try to be different. And the ease and freedom with which you can enter every situation in your life and every room that you walk into is one of the greatest, most freeing gifts you can ever give to yourself. So if you need help neutralizing any of your level 10 out of 10 difficulties in life, if you need help going deep on this unconditional love towards yourself process, head to phoebestewart.com and it would be my privilege to support and guide you through the process and give you elite level tools to do it way faster than I ever did. Thank you so much for being here today. If you want to keep hanging out, because I sure do, then head to my Instagram at Phoebesgram or my website, phoebestewart.com.